Welcome everyone to another episode of Frankly Speaking. Today I chat to Dudu who is an avid investor and an investor in and on the Franc app. You will see from the chat that we had that she had a bit of a late start. She only started in 2016, but she delved right into it, got very in depth and very involved in her investment. And I think there's a lot to learn in her approach to investment and how she's learned in a very different way to a lot of the other investors that we've spoken to. She's particularly an advocate for group investing and is a member of a number of investment groups, which is a really interesting space to be in. And she has a lot of tips around what to do and what not to do in the group investment space. And I think you'll really enjoy this chat with Dudu. So welcome, and let's hop right into it. Tell us a bit about yourself. I know when we first spoke, you described the 8 pizza slices of your life, which I love the concept of. I think everyone should have this framework to describe their lives and what's important to them. So I'd love you to retell that with that framework as well.
Thanks, Cassidy. Hi, everybody. My name is Dudu Makari. Who am I? It's always a daunting question, I know. And all of us start with, well, I was born here. And so I'm just like, no, I off-boarded myself of that descriptor, and I'm trying to kind of succinctly say who I am as I'm asked. But first and foremost, I'm a child of God. I think I have really connected with my spirituality and kind of the source of it all quite intently in the last couple of years. So that I declare up front, because it also just frames then everything else that I do. And it allows me to have a reference point and an opportunity it's a decision-making matrix. So if I identify as a child of God, therefore, the rest of my life should resemble that I'm a child of God. And so people mustn't be surprised with how Kanti she said this, but and I often think we're all in ICU when it comes to our relationship with God. We're just constantly having understood who He is and that we're made in His image, constantly trying to get to that. I fail a lot. I'm just like, oh, you would not do that, Lord, and I can hear Him say, yeah, I would not have said that, or no, I would not have made that decision. So first and foremost, I'm a child of God. So that's where my anchor is. And then I've also come to the keen appreciation of one's values and character. So I'm constantly trying to not say all the lovely ones that everybody wants to know, like integrity. I'm like, which ones do I live daily? And that then isn't trying to build the person that I am. And even with those that I live daily, constantly work in progress. But service is the highest calling, and that's probably one of my most consistent values, service. And service for me is service in time, resources, gifts, my talents, just service, and constantly trying to help people, regardless of where they're at, whether I'm in the village helping or I'm sitting next to a CEO and I'm like, brah, those socks don't work with that suit. Like, I've served you in that moment, man. My fashionista self has just served you. Very important. So service, and then I'm always moved by compassion. So I have done in retrospect some of the craziest things in service of that compassion. That's what always just jolts me into action. And then relationally, I'm married to, I'm not saying this because we all said this amazing guy, but he really, really is. And he's just a constant. Him and I can drive. He's my best driving partner. I don't generally like driving with people, especially on long distances, but I can drive to Cape Town. I'll never drive to Cape Town again. But if I did absolutely have to with a gun on my head, I would drive with him. And because then I'm comfortable. It's kind of like the silence is not awkward. We can just do our thing. And then I have children, all 4 of them. Yes, I didn't say 40. I meant 40, but there's actually 4. They feel like 40 of them.
Sometimes feels like 40.
Yes, but it's just 4 of them. 2 girls, 2 boys. Leto is 12, Lesedi is 11, Renaya is 7, and Ronewa, the cutest, don't tell everybody else I said that, but the cutest of them all is Ronewa. He's 2.5 and is the munchiest thing ever. And I'm learning through him. I'm seeing the process of growth through him. And it's such an amazing process to see growth at hand. COVID taught us also about growth. The 1 minute my son could not open the door to my study, and a couple of weeks later he could. So I literally saw him grow. And that for me was just a moment of, wow, like I'm seeing growth in real life. And then I describe myself with how I earn my money. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm a social entrepreneur. And I'm most definitely a capitalist trapped in a socialist body. Sometimes I think I'm a socialist trapped in a capitalist body. Depending on the situation, I'm not sure which is which. But my social need, and my husband often says to me, but we're not Mother Teresaing now. Like, talk to me about the business of the business. And I'm always kind of drawn to trying to solve problems from a social perspective, which always gets me into trouble with my business side of things. But that's how I earn my money. I run a foundation. We caught onto this concept from biblically so, where it says you can earn seven streams you should have 7 streams of income. And then it goes on to say, in fact, it should be 8. So multiple income is also quite alive in my head. And so I earn my income through investments, through active businesses, and through debt loaning sometimes. So my friends, now I'm the auntie to go to. When you need 10 rand, but then I want it back as 12 rand, or when you need 100 rand, but I want it back as 112 rand. But it's like a small amount. So I can't even say that's an income stream, as it were. I'm just trying to show people that just because you can come to me doesn't mean it doesn't, I value my money and I understand its ability to grow. And when I give it to you and it's not going to do that, it does have an impact on me. So that's kind of the concept I'm trying to teach myself and people as well. And then how I serve, I'm involved in a lot of ministry work. My sister runs the International Marketplace Summit. We're a workplace ministry, and I'm actively serving in that space. And and then I serve in my day-to-day because I run the foundation. And then I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a cousin, I'm a auntie, I'm a grandmother even. So I play those roles as well. And then, largely in the network, I belong to a number of different things. I'm in a golf group. I'm in a few investment groups. I'm in a few golf groups. I'm in a few things. I serve on the PAC at the school, at my daughter and son's school. So I'm very actively involved in my kids' education as well. And I like being plugged in. I think one of my key things, they say humans like to belong, or all of our innate need is for a sense of belonging. And I am sea deep in belonging. I belong in a lot of places. So I don't feel lost. I know somebody should be able to help. And that's a very long who I am, but that is who I am.
I love how you fit so much into a short amount of time. So many facets of your life. I'm trying to figure out how you do all these things as well with the very limited time that we all have. So Dudu, tell us rather, what was your early relationship with money? How did it get started in your life, that you recognized money, that you started interacting with it and understanding it?
So I grew up my dad was a serial entrepreneur. My grandmothers, both from my paternal and maternal side, were entrepreneurs. I just didn't understand that at the time. So my maternal grandmother would sell everything. So 1 minute you arrive at home and it's chickens. How? And then Dudu, we're selling amakwinya. Then Dudu, like, what is going on here? I thought we were selling chickens. No, tomorrow it's something else. And similarly with my paternal grandmother. So she was in the liquor business, and she also, though, sold other things outside of that. So she augmented the liquor with the cigarettes. And if that was not that, it was with chickens as well. Or there was just always something going on that I was exposed to. And then my dad as well. So he was also in the liquor business. He had a shop at some point. Then he was involved in a soccer club at some point. My mom was a professional, so she was a nurse. But I now remember she would sell art through a magazine. She tried Herbalife at some point. She was in some pyramid scheme at some point. So I obviously didn't recognize that as entrepreneurship or kind of finding multiple streams of income. But I saw how there was always a need to get the money to service stuff, to service my school fees, to service my clothes, to service food. So there was definitely a relationship between how much you earn or what you bring in and what you could then afford. And then I was at a private school, and then my dad couldn't afford the school fees. And as such, I then landed up in a government school. So I've always kind of had a clear understanding and knowing that income equals what you can have and the quality of that you can have. And then in grade 10, I then got a job because I could see that my love for things and my pocket money were just not mathing. So I was like, oh, okay, I can't buy shoes. There's a problem. That's a problem. So I worked as a retail consultant, they used to call us. And so that's why I feel I'm upset with myself sometimes. I've been working since grade 8, guys, since standard 10. It's a long time. I deserve to retire. So that money from my schooling years kind of enabled my social life. It enabled work. It just enabled a lot of things. So and I didn't spend it very well. I keep thinking if I saved an equivalent of 100 Rand today back then, I think I would be different. Things would be different. So I've since come to understand the power of compound interest, the power of saving, and how when you get into a sticky situation, those savings really do make a difference. And then after school, I worked. So directly from from school, then I worked. So, and then I had debt, because I liked clothing, I then got an Edgar's account. And that was like the worst thing ever. I think everyone I know in my age group, in my circles, we all had Edgar's accounts, and it just didn't go so well with a lot of us. So I then got introduced to debt and how that is such an easy way of getting money, yet there's nothing easy or cool about it because you have to pay it back. So I now have an aversion to debt somewhat. I will do everything not to get into debt because that lesson kind of took lots of wrong turns to get me to a point where I'm like, do not do it. Like, if you absolutely don't have to, don't. And it's hindered me somewhat in a business context because debt can be good. You can actually kind of augment your income stream and your operating capital with debt. But I'm still very shy. I mean, one of my clients offered us interest-free loans, and I said, oh, no, thank you. No, thank you. She was like, girl, I need you to think about that. I'm like, I promise you, no, thank you. Because I was just like, yo, you're going to give me 750K. Give me a minute. Call me in 2 minutes. I would have told you how I would have used it. So so that's kind of been my relationship, very up and down. But over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, 5 years maybe, I've been very consistent and very intentional about saving, and intentional about not just saving in a normal bank account, but investing and actually looking at the rands and the cents and understanding the different instruments and how which instrument gives you better interest and which one is for short term, which one is for long term. So it's an area of interest now, actually. And I'm enjoying that journey. It's complicated. Now we've got hedge funds, and then there's Bitcoin. And then I'm just like, guys, I just arrived. Can we just keep it simple? So so that's been my relationship with money.
So you mentioned kind of starting to really get into saving and investing 4 or 5 years ago. What was the trigger point for that? What catalyzed you having that interest now in saving and investing?
So I then realized my daughters need to go to the international traveling school. And that's what changed sort of the clear, how much money do I actually need over X amount of period, and how much money do I have to save or put aside every month. So that clarity in goal has been what has contributed to me being so intentional about it. And then somebody said, not retirement. I'm like, no, do we get to even retire? I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to retire, but certainly the idea that there is something called an international traveling school, where you get to kind of live in 4 different countries or a country per semester, and understanding the value of travel. So I value travel for its educational purpose, because every country I've traveled to, I've come back and I've thought, I love South Africa. Like I absolutely want to live here and continue to live here. And then I've also just grown a keen appreciation of the hardships that, especially on the African continent, that people live with on a day-to-day basis. Life is not as comfortable for the spaces that I've been in. And comfort, I bring my privilege to this point, but comfort is relative, right? But in my comfort standard, I'm like, okay, I see how life is different for other people. So that's why I want them to go to the traveling school, even if it's just for a year or 2 years. And so it's 1.6 million rand today. And it was a couple of millions when I started on this journey. So I've always kind of been like, I have to work hard. So every time my kids are being belligerent, I'm just like, about the traveling school. I don't know about that anymore.
Do they know what you're sacrificing for them and their traveling opportunities?
Do they, Cassidy? Do they? I don't know.
They will. Further down the line, when they have their own children, they will. So you decide you need to start saving and investing towards your children's education. Where do you get started? How do you even start learning about this and finding out what you need to do?
So in 2016, I think it was actually, I bumped into a friend of mine, actually told me about her friend that had just started an investment company. And I then got introduced to that organization, GMI, and that's where my saving journey began. And I happened to be in transition from a full-time job into entrepreneurship, and they then helped me kind of with finding the right product where my pension was going to go into. And that's where it began. So I got myself an official organization like a Franc to then help me with deciding. But really at the time, it was just, I need to just put this money away and I'm sure it's okay. Like I wasn't very conscious I wasn't very conscious about fees or whatever. I was just like, hey man, I'm saving. I'm ticking the box. I'm saving. So did that for a couple of years until 2018, when I then signed up as a member of Basadi Pele. So I was introduced to Basadi Pele by one of the 10 founders. And the idea was our parents have always been involved in stokvels, but what if we did it with a twist? Sort of, we didn't just put the money under our mattress or just put it into a savings account, but what if we actually use the instruments that are available to actually grow this money and save collectively, build wealth collectively? And there I met like a amazing group of women who come from diverse backgrounds, investment bankers, deal makers, doctors, just professionals, and I'm quite inspired by them actually, because I listen to some of the debates that we have, and it's a proper business. We've registered with the CIPC, we've got an MOI, we have an investment committee. We bring any investment that people want us to invest in before a committee. They do the due diligence. Then it gets brought to the bigger group and questions are asked. What is the interest rate? Is it above prime? Is it less than prime? How are we going to gear this? And then, at times I sit there, I'm just like, guys, okay, can we just, for those of us in the room that don't know what gearing is, just, can we have a Google cheat sheet for terms and stuff? But I've obviously now learned the language. So it's easier now to engage with papers. And now I'm actively involved. So when I arrived, I wasn't on any committee. I wasn't serving in the exec. I wasn't serving in any of the other subcoms. But now I am. So that was Basadi Pele. And then one of the ladies was investing with other people. There was an opportunity that was brought to Basadi Pele. Not everybody was interested. And then those of us that were then set up another entity called Humerera, which is Women Who Prosper. So Humerera Capital was born from Basadi Pele. And through that, then we kind of have the same people, but not everybody in the one entity and not everybody in the other entity. And then we then started investing with another, and I thought Basadi Pili was like lit. QR, which is the organization that we are investing with other investors, are just wow. Like I often am inboxing on our group, which they just said this. What are they talking about? These guys are like the real deal. I mean, we are the real deal as Basadi and Humerera, but these guys are like on another level. And there you are just with entrepreneurs, you're there with deal makers who make like proper deals, stuff like monies that get thrown out. I'm just like, wow, okay, I didn't even know that kind of money exists. Bitcoin, people are into tech, they're into just different stuff. So my network then has grown through that investment in that organization through Humerera, but it's just kind of expanded our network. And then we had another, so it's all organic. Then there was another opportunity that came up. Both Humerera and ourselves as Basadi Pili were interested, but the purse was a lot bigger. So we then have Humerera, we've got Basadi Pili, and now we formed, those of us who were interested, another organization to then participate in this bigger deal. So now you kind of have Basadi, Humerera, and Bahu, which is a third entity, but with similar people. And this whole journey is just about growth in concepts, growth in the investment world, growth in different instruments, how these, like the whipholds of this world, how they've managed their money, how they are doing well, the importance of the ticket size, the importance of how much we contribute. So it's just brought up so much in the last couple of months that, it's made each entity think differently to say, if we want to participate in deals that need R1 million, like how much is 1,000 Rand going to actually, is that going to get us anywhere if there's 12 of us? So now we've all upped a little bit our ticket prices so that when an opportunity comes, we can engage with it more deeply and we can actually be invited to the table purely because of we can afford it and not because of our blackness or the fact that we're all female and black, but actually because they want 1.5 million, we've got 1.5 million, So that's been our investment journey, been like a roller coaster ride, but such an amazing learning opportunity.
I mean, I can very much understand this, the benefits of being able to learn within a group and learn from other people who have different experience and different backgrounds, different perspectives. I think you mentioned that before as well. You didn't necessarily have the actual experience, but you had the years to kind of bring to the table. What is it about the investing in a community that is so important to you? That kind of togetherness and deciding as a group on the investments that you make?
I think investing in a group has so much benefits for me. Just the sisterhood, that I've got sisters. They look like me, they sound like me, they can relate to my experience and they get it. Like we all get it. Like we'll say something and you don't have to explain yourself again. I think the diversity in our groups, from an education perspective, from an work experience perspective, really enriches our experience because you've got people who have done this as a living, some people who are investing on behalf of their own companies or that they work for. You've got serial entrepreneurs, you've got a diverse, from a corporate work experience perspective, it's an amazing melting pot because you can just learn so much from each other. And a shared goals are also discussed in terms of, okay, we're going to save for 10 years or 5 years. Some people have off-boarded themselves because the period was too short. And they're like, no, I need my money to sit for longer than just 5 years. So if you guys are interested in 10 years, then great, I'm in. But if it's 5, I'm not. I think it's also allowed us to have a level of empathy when it comes to what is actually going on in people's lives. COVID taught us a few lessons just about how we arrive for each other, or how we show up rather for each other, even though we're just investors. it starts to go beyond, in some instances, just an investing relationship. And then it's built one's network. I mean, I now have sisters that I'm now connected with outside of the group, just in building my own network. So those are just but some of the reasons or the benefits of collective investing.
And if somebody from the audience wants to, start their own group, get a hold of people together to start investing or sharing learnings around investing and saving together, are there any drawbacks or any learnings that you've gained along the way that you would kind of warn them of to potentially avoid? Because I can imagine could also be the aspect of groupthink, for example. So you want to make sure you have the right people in the group. So things like that. I'd be very interested to know what you've experienced and what you would advise somebody who wants to get into something like this.
Compliance is a thing. Tax is a thing. So you must have somebody who has the appetite for the admin of the group, because setting up an organization, setting up, getting compliance documents, the banking. So compliance is a big thing. And I've seen how that has become a stumbling block sometimes, because then we just don't move fast enough because we don't have so-and-so's ID, therefore nobody's featured, or so compliance is a thing. I think we must trust each other is a big thing, and understand that life happens, but have a framework to manage the trust, have a framework to manage what happens when life happens. And that framework and that structure is so important, because then it's a guiding. We don't make decisions on a whim. There's principles that have to drive our decision making. And that has been so amazing to see. We have not invested in people because they were shady. They were just purely shady. And we all agreed we are not shady people, so we're not going to invest with these people. And also when we've then had to off or extricate ourselves from a deal, we've then been able to say it's because of our value systems are not aligned, because our MOI states this. So you've got to have people that are knowledgeable about compliance, the legalities. We've had to bring lawyers in when either we couldn't make a decision or we needed guidance or to frame our MOI. We didn't take a template. Ours was thought through. You track your changes, but you haven't contributed. We chase people up. You've got to have the majority. You've got to know. For us to make an investment decision, only 75% or 75% of people must say yes. And if 74 say no or say yes, you can't make the deal because our MOI said 75%. So just being able to hold ourselves accountable has been a thing. And then needing to offboard people that don't pay is always painful. But because I think we're all sort of compassion and friendship relationships did get kind of were part of the decision making, but it was like, but our MOI says, but our documents say, but so no hard feelings. We'll still have coffee with you tomorrow, but this is what we agreed on. You haven't paid your subscription for X month, therefore we have to offboard you. And I think we've had some decisions we delayed because we understood people's personal circumstances. And then we did that for too long and it was like, guys, no, they've got to go. And if, one of us has had to be the one to break the news, and then we just do.
It's a great thing to fall back on. Dudu, out of interest, as well as the investments that you are in as a group, do you have your own personal investments that you have on the side? And how does, I guess, the interplay between those group investments and your own personal investments happen?
So I do, and because I've also been at this since sort of 2016-ish, I've obviously been investing on my own, just trusting sort of my investment company. And I find I'm able to, when my investment people say, there's this on the market, I'm then able to recommend that to the group. And similarly, I've learned of investment opportunities through the groups, and nothing kind of prohibits us from investing in our personal capacities. So it's been great. I think it's also helped me to know how to engage with my investment firm, because I see and I hear the conversations that are happening in the bigger group. So it's been a great learning experience for me personally, because I'm able to take back some of that to be like, but actually about fees, like how much are you guys charging me again? Because I know in my group, this is what we discussed. So it's a great learning opportunity in that regard. And whenever there's conflict, which there never really has been, then you declare it. You say, okay, guys, but I'm already doing this, or but there's nothing that would preclude me from investing in stuff in my personal capacity that I'm already doing in a group, and vice versa.
Out of interest, because it sounds like you have such interesting investments left, right, and center, what would you say your portfolio is made up of, like roughly, in terms of your investments?
So I have, RAs, I've got unit trusts, I've got ETFs, we have Bitcoin, a little bit of Bitcoin, we have unlisted investments through other people's businesses. We got into what do they call it? It's purchase order kind of funding program. We did livestock at some point. So we've got, it feels like not the full spectrum, I'm sure, but we've got our portfolio in my personal capacity is equally varied. And so is the one that is done through or with the other ladies. Lots of different instruments.
You give diversification a whole different lens. That is, very diverse. And then out of interest, how did you first hear about the Franc app, and how does that kind of fit into your greater mix of investments?
So one of our, through another investment company that we invest with, they invested in Franc. So we have Franc as one of our unlisted opportunities. And then it made sense for me to drink my own Kool-Aid, because it was kind of one of the only spaces where I could also do in my personal capacity as well. So, and I am investing in different things anyway. And that's how I got into Franc. So I've been investing with you guys, I think, for the last, or you can tell me better, I don't know how many years now. But since then, I kind of, we didn't have a presentation from Franc, but it came to the IC, to our investment com. And we discussed it, and it's still one of the listed entities that we have, unlisted rather, that we have.
Okay, so you're invested in and on. That's really interesting.
Yes.
And how would you say your investment approach has changed over the last few years, that you've, from the point where you started investing, this very steep, seemingly learning curve or learning journey that you've taken to the point now where you have such a diversified portfolio of investments? Has it changed? Or has it just evolved and grown over time?
I think it's evolved. It's a lot. It's evolved. And sometimes more organically, sometimes more direct. It's just evolved. I mean, I feel like I know so much sometimes, and then they'll hit me with an investment. I'm like, I know nothing. Never mind. I'll just go back. I'll just sit down. I'm keeping quiet at this point. So I think I'm naturally much better than I was in 2016. I know a lot more than I did in 2016. And now it's just the depth. I think it's the flavor of the investment is a lot different, because now we're just considering so many different elements of the investment. I had never been involved in due diligences or doing a due diligence. And now I have been involved in a few, where we look at their financials, where we look at where they're going, where we look at their debt structure, where we look at their equity structures. So I think evolve sounds better. I've evolved.
And it must be so interesting to be so hands-on and so in-depth in your own investments as well. Because, I mean, you get different flavors of investors, right? You have those people that are happy to have it quite passive and kind of hands-off. But how interesting to learn in such depth of, the companies and the investments that you're investing in. So Dudu, what advice would you give to another female investor or any investor who wants to start investing and is kind of beginning their investing journey?
Find a group of women that you can walk a journey with. You must be open to learning. I think you must also appreciate that you're not going to know a lot of things a lot of the time. like me. And you must just sit in that growing phase and sometimes just be, guys, I'm in the room. I have no idea what you're talking about. But if you all agree, I trust you enough to make the decision on my behalf until you grow the muscle to be able to engage more meaningfully. Empathy is important because life happens. But governance, wow, governance is even more important because that governance structure will help you to govern that relationship and not make things personal. That's important. If you get the right governance structures and you've got the right ethics around money, and that you're all aligned from a values perspective about how you make your money, that's your tribe. You kind of people that have different values when it comes to money, and also allow yourself for your values to change over time within that as well, because I might have come in thinking one thing, but kind of as you get exposed to people, then it changes your view and it changes how you then invest. That would also be advice. And then have a goal, have a clear goal. I think when I was just sort of investing, it was just then my decision-making matrix is different now to now investing for a purpose. So, and I have a lot of goals, which is fine. I just can't do all of them at the same time. So I need to prioritize some of those goals and also understand that, I'm not necessarily going to do everything, but at least I have like a couple of North Stars and I can interchangeably say, okay, cool, I'm deciding to buy that pair of shoes actively. I'm deciding to do it. And then you do it. And then you don't feel bad about it. So yeah, that would be some of my best advice.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for being in the studio, Dudu. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure our audience will as well. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story and your very interesting investing journey and portfolio.
Thank you so much, Cassidy. And I apologize for the many mishaps, but here I am.
Thank you so much, Dudu. Have a good one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you everyone for listening in on this episode. If you like what you heard or saw, please hit subscribe for more of these episodes where we chat to other Franc investors and learn about their journeys and what they learned along the way, what they would do, what they wouldn't do, the tips that they have that we can learn from. And until next time, cheers.